Good evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock and 7:01 here on Thursday, September 10th, 2020. This is the Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Board of Education meeting. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business, not to be considered a public community meeting, but there is time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda item. Mr. Lyon, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Carpenter?
Here.
Mrs. France?
Here.
Mrs. Long?
Here.
Mr. Price?
Here.
Mrs. Slaughter?
Here.
Thank you very much. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. It is my good pleasure to also announce this evening that we have 11 members of the staff here at the middle school who have received the Thomas Edison Award for STEM Education and Student Research. And those staff members are, I have to get this close enough for me to Lindsay Allen, Lisa Bakita, Allison Bizignani, Kayla Brueggemann, Emily Klein, Crystal Current, Allison Geis, Kim Lord, Debbie Schwederman, Shelby Sigmund, and Jennifer St. Pierre. Please join me in congratulating.
For everyone, I am so sorry about that.
No, Lisa Bakita. Thank you. Kayla Brueggemann.
She's
I
can take her.
Okay, thank you very much. Crystal Current.
I'll take this.
Okay. Very good. Schwederman. Thank you. Congratulations. Jennifer St. Pierre.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Shelby Sigmund. Thank you very much and congratulations. Kim Lord. Congratulations. I like to shake hands with everybody. Allison Geis. Thank you. Emily Klein.
Yeah.
Allison Bizignani. Allison, okay. Lindsay Allen. Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Please, congratulations. All of you. We're going on now to the Sugar Creek Education Association president is going to share some thoughts with us this evening. By contract, the Sugar Creek Education Association has a standing opportunity to speak at every regular meeting. And so Mark Fair is going to take opportunity to speak with us this evening. He is the president of the Education Association. So Mark, thank you very much.
I'd like to say congratulations to all the middle school teachers who received that award. That's fantastic, and it really demonstrates what kind of staff that we have here and the dedication they have to their students. So I want to give them a round of applause. So I have a prepared statement. It is a little long, but it's not terribly long, so please bear with me. There. All right. So at every turn of the pandemic since its onset, Bellbrook teachers have embraced new challenges, embarked on new professional learning, enhanced best practices, empowered their students and each other toward resilience, all while enduring teaching, learning, and working conditions that no one was ever prepared for. No one could have ever imagined. The work of schools is carried out on the backs of teachers, and our teachers have embodied by action and spirit the definition of making the best of a tough situation. In the spring, for example, teacher leaders took the reins on a district-wide literacy initiative in an effort to connect the school and the community at large through a common experience in a time when sharing physical spaces was not possible. Under the leadership of their peers, teachers mobilized and developed a website and infrastructure for shared curriculum planning and collaboration, and delivered the novel Wish Tree virtually in English and Spanish to district families. Students were engaged in critical thinking, problem solving, narrative writing, and digital literacy, while also exploring social emotional learning, which was perhaps the most important outcome in such unprecedented times. Just as the characters in the novel experienced Wish Day as a community each May 1st, our teachers replicated the experience with the children and adults alike in our community virtually. The messages of hope, positivity, selflessness, empathy, and genuine concern for one another were published for the benefit of all of our Golden Eagle family. The positivity fostered through this project and other collaborative partnerships among stakeholders has fueled teachers' perseverance and glass half full mentality. While this endeavor may seem extraordinary, our educators' hard work and collaborative partnerships for the benefit of students and families is not uncommon or unique to the pandemic. Bellbrook is often the paradigm for the region, and other schools look to us to see how it's done. Now more than ever, it is paramount that we continue to protect our special culture, preserve our partnerships, and work together to remain optimistic and focus on all of the many things that make Bellbrook a great place to learn, teach, and grow. Whether it is a partnership directly with the purpose of improving teaching and learning, or one in an effort to support our leadership in the decision-making and management of the district, the SEA leadership works countless hours to ensure that our district is poised to deliver the best possible educational environment and experiences for our students. Specifically, Dr. Kozad engaged the Teachers Association leadership this summer in an effort to collaboratively develop plans for the safest reopening possible for our schools. He solicited the expertise and experience of teachers who could identify specific logistical issues or scenarios that students and teachers might encounter in the day-to-day operation of schools. This partnership that was employed in this decision-making process and the mutual respect and support for one another have resulted in our minimal cases of quarantining and our successful reopening of our schools in unprecedented times. In spite of these present challenges, this partnership and shared commitment amongst all stakeholders in order to successfully, safely carry out the mission and vision of Bellbrook-Sugarcreek schools are crucial. It is worth mentioning that we are addressing the board during this first meeting following the holiday of Labor Day, a day dedicated to honoring the workers of America as they fought to gain the right to organize for the opportunity to face their employers with the strength of solidarity. The Sugarcreek Education Association was established more than 3 decades ago with the goal of providing quality education to students and collective bargaining representation for the staff. Our relationship has rarely been contentious and has often resembled a partnership working together to implement the best educational policies for our students. It is the result of this partnership that Bellbrook-Sugarcreek schools have become a school district that compares favorably to districts across the United States of America. High schools are only as good as their middle and elementary schools, and Bellbrook High School is consistently ranked as a top high school in the nation, such as the rank of 2023 in the nation, 66 in Ohio, and number 4 in the Dayton area per the rankings in the U.S. News and World Report from 2020. As a point of context, there are over 13,500 districts in the United States, putting us in the top 15% of high schools in this country. This partnership allows us to speak to the board during these open meetings because this was a right we gained last fall after the SEA agreed to extend the expiring contract, which essentially cut or froze the pay of most teachers and staff. As already mentioned, the partnership between the district and the SEA also played a role during this pandemic as we forged a plan intended to rely on the advice of, I'm so sorry. I apologize. It shifted on me. Rely on the advice of medical professionals. Our plan had the potential to reduce the risk involved with returning to school by insisting on the use of masks before the state mandate and by maximizing physical distancing through the use of a hybrid attendance model. Compared to many surrounding districts, we only slightly delayed the students' first day, and we have enacted a plan to keep students in classrooms and avoid a 100% virtual model. The SEA views the actions of the board during the last board meeting as having damaged this partnership, as well as the culture of our district. This is evidenced by the multiple SEA members that wish to call a vote of no confidence in the board following the most recent meeting. A call that the SEA resisted. The Partnerships require dialogue between the stakeholders and recognition of the expertise that each party brings to the decision-making process. This is done in an effort to build trust and confidence, but when a Board of Education ignores the preference of the superintendent, the opinion of our district school nurses, as well as the opinion of 85% of our staff members, one cannot help but feel concerned for the future. You have undoubtedly received much communication following the most recent board meeting, as has the SEA. This inspires a lack of trust and confidence, and possibly impedes the ability for the district to function as intended. We as teachers support the vision of our administrators, who support the vision of Dr. Kozad, but without your support, this system could literally fall apart. As teachers, we understand that establishing a positive culture in our classroom starts with us. It starts from the top down, we set the tone. Our district functions in the same way. The culture is established by district leadership, and more importantly, the Board of Education. During the previous meeting, it was clear to audience members that some of you are not giving the proceedings the attention that they deserve. We have policies against cell phone use in our classrooms. We should have a similar policy at board meetings as well to ensure everyone's voice is heard and treated with respect. Seeing and getting to speak with multiple board members these past 2 weeks, as you have come to visit our classrooms, has been an extremely positive step forward in repairing the damage done and building back a positive culture across the district. A culture in which everyone truly feels heard, understood, and seen. As a further step towards rebuilding a positive culture in the district, it is the view of the SEA that everyone, staff, and board members needs to familiarize themselves with board policies concerning communication between staff and board members, and that each board member needs to attend every available training session so as to ensure a properly functioning board in this district. Thank you very much for your time.
David, are we going to respond now, or are we going to have a dialogue, or what's the plan?
We could have,
Mark,
if you would like to have some dialogue with the board members now, that would be okay, but that's up to you if you'd like to. Great, thanks. First off, I'd like to say that, again, like I said 2 weeks ago, I'm sorry that was interpreted that way. I certainly didn't intend that. I don't think that the other board members did either. And I think that the fact that a lot of the board members showed up in classrooms demonstrated that. So I appreciate you coming to speak and to point that out. I think we're pretty well aware of that. We really, as a board, we're given choices that pretty much are all bad. You have to choose among bad choices for all of that. Personally, I am sorry that you folks felt that way. That certainly wasn't intended, and I can see how you would have felt that way. Looking back, hindsight is always so very clear. So that certainly wasn't intended. But other board members, if you'd like to make a comment.
Mr. Chair, first of all, as I talked to you after the last meeting, I was very grateful that you came. We should be very receptive to input from our citizens, from our students, from our teachers. And so I thought it was very commendable that you came up and expressed, indeed, frustration. And I had no problem with that. I come from a background in the military where we just pretty much lay it on the table and say it like it is, so I don't have a problem. And actually, I respect that rather than trying to, have us imagine, what was going on. I responded. There was several emails came from teachers, concerned parents, since the last meeting, and I really had to formulate the response that I thought really fully addressed the concerns that were brought up by both you, and then of course as a spokesman for the teachers, but also some of the parents as well. And one complaint was, that we came here with a predetermined decision. And what I want to make very clear here is I had no idea what anybody else's position was, because we came to this meeting. So I, that needs to be put to rest, and hopefully it's understood. There was no pre-coordination, determination of what the response was going to be. So we each came independently to that solution. I was unfortunately not able to be here on the August 13th meeting, so then I was, all I could do was watch it, somewhat gain some understanding about some of the perspectives in public board members may have had, but certainly there was no pre-coordination on it. The thing that I really focused on in my response that I wrote out for people that emailed me, and I didn't get to respond to everyone, but I responded to a good number of people, both parents and again, teachers. And I think the thing that was really important to take away, and I would really, and this is all offered up respectfully, and so I want you to come back up here and let's have a dialogue so we can get kind of to the bottom of things here. From what I understand, and I believe you just alluded to it as well, or actually described it, that this was a plan developed with the teachers, with the administration, with health officials in the county, in our district, based upon guidance we have from the state. And the plan is published at the end of July when we were faced with a level 2 status for COVID in this county, was that the parents had to make a decision. Are you kids going to go back to school in person, or is it going to be online? And the parents, what was 80% of them decided to send their kids back to school, 20% online. And since then, since the initial decision or question was asked, there was clarity developed with the plan, which included the fact that we would begin school hybridly. And we did that. So the plan was followed with what parents were expecting based upon the decision they had to make. And to me, it's rather a point that we have to strongly consider, and I would appreciate some clarification on this, and that's why this needs to be a back and forth discussion, that the teachers, as I understood it, were involved in the plan. So then fundamentally, what we have to do is take a look at what changed from when the plan was developed, and basically which said we would do the first 3 weeks as hybrid, and then we would switch to full up attendance. So ultimately what I had to do was look at, well, what's changed since July? The answer is nothing. We are at level 2. Nothing has changed in that regard. There has been no guidance from the CDC that's different from what it was in that time frame. So that's the thing that really puzzled me with the whole situation, is that we're faced with the same level 2 that we were in August. The teachers helped develop the plan. We are now executing the plan. 80% of the parents expected us to follow that plan. So it was going to be very difficult for me as a board member to say, okay, here's a plan we developed in July. We are executing it according to the way it was laid out. The status of COVID has not changed in our community since then. The parents have responded in the majority to continue with that plan. So it was very difficult for me to say, no, we're not going to do that. And so what I would really be interested in hearing back from you is why you feel that our plan was not followed, or if your input to the plan was not followed, because I can find nothing to substantiate that.
I would say that the one big thing from your description of nothing changing over the summer would be that going back to school is a tremendous change. So that right there is the change that we as a SEA, and really as a district, we looked at the plan is put in place as being something that was preventing bad things from happening. And so I'm not going to go into details, but I'm going to tell you that everyone in the room is aware that there was a COVID positive at the high school. This person, if this person was in my classroom last Friday, no problem. No one else is going to have to be quarantined. If it happens this week, it's a minimum of 5. So, I mean, really what the point of the teachers was, not the changing of the plan, because, I'll tell you, I'll be 100% honest, you were in my classroom this week. All of my desks were in there, I never took them out. Because I do agree with you that the plan was put into place. I think the difference would be that the professionals in the building, while there is anxiety, and that could have contributed to that, had the opinion that the plan that we put in place would allow us to continue the longest period of time. The fear that has grown, and unsubstantiated possibly, is that this decision could lead us to a 100% online model faster than if we had taken it a little slower. And really, and I do agree with you to a great extent, I think really the biggest issue was being in the meeting last week, having multiple people give their suggestion. And I do understand you are public servants listening to the public, but when you think about that 80%, was it 80%, 60% of
60% of the 80%
Right.
said they wanted to return with the survey given, 10 days before school.
Right, so I mean, if you look at the 100%, then you're saying really it's less than 60%. But if you take the whole group, that means that there were many more students, many more parents in Bellbrook that did not feel comfortable sending their children to 100%. Again, I didn't really, in our notes, we didn't really talk about the specifics of the plan because we felt like that is in the past. Like the decision's been made, we disagreed with it, we put forth why we disagreed with that. We hope to repair and rebuild this relationship, and that's really our goal here. As for, I think, the feelings of teachers, it became, do you trust teachers to make decisions or not? Do you trust the administration to make decisions or not? Do you trust Dr. Gozat to make decisions or not? We look at it like, in most districts, so my spouse teaches in Centerville, I watched the Centerville meeting, they had a split board. They went with what Dr. Henderson said. Dr. Henderson said, hey, you should do online. They're online. They're having all kinds of problems with that. That's not what I'm saying. But the point is, the board listened to the advice of the professionals. I think that is what was missing, or at least that is what has bothered maybe the staff members the most.
Again, this is respectful back and forth,
Yes,
okay? Please understand, I'm not trying to berate or just, say we're in charge and that's it. Have to keep going back to the plan was developed with teacher input in July. It was known then that there would not be 6-foot spacing with the number of children that were going to be there. So that's why it just becomes quite difficult for us, for me, I can speak for everyone, but at least for me, to understand, the angst and the unhappiness with the plan that was developed in July with all those variables understood. And then when it came time to execute the plan, it's like, whoa, wait a minute, and if there had been any type of increase in COVID, as far as, especially as we could substantiate that with the alert levels in the county, then we'd have something to hang on to. And again, here's where I will admit I have some frustration here, and this has nothing to do with you or the teachers. But to say I'm mystified is beyond the pale, is what I'm going to say right here. How is it that we can question whether we can have mass students sitting probably on average 3.5 to 6 feet apart from each other, depends on the configuration, but we can play full-up contact sports with students from out the region, unmasked, and we practice daily, unmasked, and I'm aware that there's a lower incidence of risk when you're outside. But I do not want somebody that's COVID positive yelling in my face from 6 inches away while both of us are unmasked. So given my choice, I would sit beside a COVID positive person 3 feet away any day before I want somebody, yelling in my face from 6 inches away from different schools over a multi-week period. Now again, that's not the teachers, that's the guidance we have from the state. Let me be very clear. I went out to the practice yesterday, I watched the band yesterday also, or I guess it was Tuesday. And what I noticed was compliance with the rules is written. So I'm not throwing spears at any of our activities whatsoever. I question more the guidance from our state, or just a common sense disconnect that we face with school versus sports. And again, it's not your call, but you can see the puzzlement that provides to me, because I'm like, in some schools are full up online, and yet they're having contact sports. Please explain that to me.
And with that, along those same lines, we're putting students in classrooms, and I have students asking me every day, so I'm stuck in this classroom with all these people, but I can't go to the football game on Friday?
Yeah.
And that in itself is very...
There's a lot of disconnects.
It's very true.
Across the board. But I'm going to say it probably 2 more times before I'm done, maybe 3. Please understand, I'm not berating you, I'm not berating the teachers, and as I said, some of the teachers I responded to afterwards, And when we became aware, I became aware of the dissatisfaction with our response that night and our physicians, it was not an afterthought. And I told you that after the meeting last time. I did mention it last because my thoughts are all jumbled. So I'm thinking on my feet up here and doing my Miss America moment, trying to answer the question in public while I'm on stage and actually on worldview, I guess, with YouTube here. But so I have to think on my feet, and at some point, my slow mind goes, "Oh, you know what? I'm aware of that teacher response, and I didn't say anything about it because I was trying to deal with the question before me at the moment, and then try to give thought to that." So,
well, with that in mind, I'd like to thank you again for at least reflecting on that. It didn't go all the way down. No one mentioned it, so I do appreciate that.
I was intensely aware of that, and therefore I came back to it. And to say that, for anyone to think that I was not sincere or it was an afterthought, it was just a jumbled thought in my mind, because it really gave me extreme pause to go, what in the world? Okay, teachers, where's this coming from? Because I had no indication of that. It's like the bucket of water in the face, and now you're thinking, whoa, we had a plan, nothing's changed except the teachers, and now we're going to go and decide here on the fly to say no when parents have planned their child care. Everything else has been, and we don't have a basis to say, no, we're not going to go with that now,
And I guess my question there would be, if we end up having to go 100% online, those parents are going to have to figure things out.
Indeed, absolutely, and I don't contest that a bit. But again, I want all the teachers that are here, the ones that will listen, that watch this afterwards, and hopefully you'll talk to them as well. I am deeply aware, appreciative, and concerned about the inputs from the teachers, and we want and need to hear that. Again, I came out this week, as you noticed. Thank you for the invitation. I may not have thought about it if you had been so kind as to extend the invitation to me. A couple quick comments about that. I was very pleased with what I saw there, the seriousness with which it was taken. Mr. Ham was in there in the lunchroom and helping clean things, and you saw students very aware of maintaining their social distancing. Students were spilling over out to the front, out to the back. The ones who were sitting at the tables were indeed, keeping safe distances. I was especially impressed with, I asked you about it after the class there, it was Adib, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Bless his heart. It was the most awesome thing, man. You got this teenage kid, usually they're a bunch of, petri dishes, right? Walking around. And so he gets up, he goes outside, and he blows his nose. He comes back in, gets another wipe, and blows his nose some more. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm not a germphobe per se, really, but I do take note of things like, do men actually wash their hands and leave the restroom and things like that. So I thought, well, I'm gonna watch what he does here, because this is something I do. It's a pet peeve of mine. When somebody blows their nose, I like to see them go wash their hands afterwards, because believe it or not, those are not waterproof articles, right? Well, that little guy, he goes over there, and first thing he comes back in, he goes to the hand sanitizer. Of course, he might have some liquid on his finger from what he just did, right? So rather than touch the top of the dispenser, he literally uses his knuckles to push down to put the hand sanitizer on.
So he is very aware of those situations in the building, in terms of the cleaning, the protocols, and whatnot.
So, Dean, if you're watching, or your parents, or whoever, awesome. Be the example and rattle the cage of your fellow students and even the teachers if they aren't doing the right thing. So, again, I was very impressed. My own personal perspective, if I were a student, this is again personal, if I were a student, if I were a teacher, I would feel comfortable with what I saw on a daily basis going to school. I have a child in school as well. I'm comfortable with him going, but that's my own personal perspective on things. So, anyway, I guess I could talk for the next 2 hours, but I really thought it was very important to convey, at least from my perspective, why I took the position I did, and really underscore I'm very respectful, and I really want to hear from the teachers, and we need to get through. We're a community. Let's work together to make this work. But my position will still remain that we're at 100% until we see otherwise. If we go to hybrid, I really believe we should knock off the contact sports, because there's just an irreconcilable disconnect there that I cannot justify in my mind. That's for a different discussion. But Anyhow, I've talked a lot. I want to intensely and deeply thank you for, again, talking to us at the board meeting last time, for coming up here tonight, giving the statement that you did, for coming back up, having this back and forth. I may have some more questions and comments later, but I shouldn't, again, take the whole night up, so I will pass the mic off to whoever wants. And by the way, you mentioned the cell phone. I reached for mine 2 seconds before you said that, so anybody that happened to be watching on the YouTube video would say, hey, he did exactly what I was talking about. Well, literally what I was doing, believe it or not, besides checking the sports scores, no, was I was making sure my phone was not going to ring while you were speaking. So, but I'm aware of what you're saying. We need to be fully attentive when people are speaking, when we're having these decisions and discussions here at the board meetings. So I said I was going to give the mic away twice. I haven't done it yet. So anybody else that wants to speak?
Can everybody hear me? That's the real question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we could. Thanks, Mark, for coming up to speak too. I got a chance to visit the schools the Monday after the board meeting, and then Tuesday when everybody was there back full time. Got quite an earful on the Monday from a number of folks, but on the Tuesday when I came back, and I was glad that people were willing to share. On the Tuesday when I came back, a lot of people had attitudes were a lot more upbeat, a lot more positive. People had come up with some creative ways to address the things that concerned them in their own classrooms, which was great, and that's something that I greatly appreciated. And so a lot of creative solutions that people came up with to address the issues that were most important to them. So it was another example of the resiliency of our staff and our teachers. So again, thanks.
And you know, Mr. Governor, when you speak to teachers being upbeat, I think that's demonstrative of the fact that we are, for the most part, all about the students.
Yes.
And you know, to make them comfortable is the most important thing. We can't let them be fearful if we are.
Right. Anybody else? Okay. Mark, thank you so much for coming. I greatly appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
So that's down through a review of the agenda items. Starting with reports to the board, Dr. Koza is going to spend some time talking about our back at 100% and what other influences might impact that. So we'll listen to what he has to say about that. I'll give us some advice there. Under new business, say this is. Hold it far enough away, then I can read it without the glasses. And the new business for our resignations, we have one from Meredith Collins. She is finding another position that is more in line with her current career goals. And then we have someone filling the position that's being vacated by Ms. Collins. And then Zachary Greenwald is moving to Louisville, Kentucky, and so that opens up that opportunity as well. The supplemental duty contracts, nothing really unusual there. Then the resignations under B, the support staff employment resignation leave of absence. Those resignations are all related to personal decisions that people need to make with family and health and so forth. Nothing really unusual about employment contract updates, and the increase in daily hours for a special needs assistant is just to balance out some time that's required for those services. And then under our revision to school fees, the 8th grade is getting $1 additional in their school fee, which is requires board approval for something called flight. Can you Can you elaborate on what flight is? I should have.
I'm not teaching this year.
Okay,
Oh.
STEM related class.
Oh, a STEM related class.
Jennifer?
I'm from different class.
So I'm teaching eighth grade, like this year's a new class, it's an elective class that's STEM based, and it's about the history of aviation and the physics of flight, and we're doing a lot of hands-on activities with that.
If you need a volunteer to come in and talk about airplanes flying, let me know.
Okay. Sounds good to
I
me.
know something about that. So.
He's a pilot.
You know his email.
That's right, you know his email address, Michelle. So, a dollar increase in fees, sorry to put you on the spot. Yeah, $1 for the increase in fees for flight.
That's why she got an award tonight.
That's what she knows what's going on with that, that's right. Okay, that's the extent on those, just on the review of those items. So let's go on to the treasurer's report.
Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the August 13th and the August 27th meetings, both?
Mrs. France, Mrs. Sloughman. Any changes or corrections? Let's call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Can I get a motion to approve the treasurer's report for the month of August as presented with the agenda?
Mrs. Long? Mrs. Sloughman?
Just a couple quick comments. Wanted to mention that our annual audit began last week. Budgeted, it cost us $19,557 to be exact. A lot of people don't know that we have to pay for ourselves to be audited, but we do. And that's done by the state of Ohio. In the past, we've had the CPA firm do it. And then I also wanted to note on the first blue page, some good signs. Although we're early in the fiscal year, our fiscal year starts July 1st, so we're only at these reports at the end of August, so we're only 2 months in. But with 16% of the year elapsed, we are right at 15% expenditure for salaries, 16% for benefits, right where we want to be, and 17% at this point of what we budgeted for the state foundation, although the budget was lower because it cut us $650,000. But anyway, we're pretty much on par with what our estimate for the budget is. Our real estate taxes, of course, are much higher than the percentage of the year that's elapsed because we received our first half tax settlement and we only received 2 of those a year. So we're near 50% on that one. Any questions about any of the other reports or anything else listed there?
Mary, any questions? Okay, call the roll.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman, Mr. Carpenter.
Yes, motion passes. For correspondence, I'll comment first on correspondence. I did receive many notes following the August 27th special meeting, including invitations to visit classrooms at several buildings, and other board members and I know visited as well. Most notes have been responded to, although I know that several of us have a few more that we want to respond to as well. Feedback is a gift, and I appreciate hearing from a wide variety of perspectives we received both before and after the meeting we had 2 weeks ago. Anybody else have comments on correspondence?
I'll talk from here. Some of us, well, certainly me, discovered, I don't know about the other board members, but I expect the same. A lot of the emails from parents wind up in spam buckets. Teachers know this. They don't get the communication from parents often. So some people would email me. I did not notice that until like way later. So sometimes when you don't get a response, it's because it went to a spam bucket and never got discovered. So that's something we have to kind of be aware of and try to do a better job of looking in the junk file, so.
Yep.
uh,
That was my experience as well. All right, anybody else with correspondence? Okay. Dr. Kozak, I'll report to the board.
So reviewing or continuing the fall 2020 reset and restart plan. So this is looking forward here. So as we're looking forward, what are some of the things that may impact whether we stay at 100%, whether we go back to remote or 50-50 hybrid, or whether we go 100% remote. So as we're looking at those and making those decisions, some items that would go into that information would be the state of Ohio's health advisory system, which right now we are orange. The Greene County is orange. Obviously, Montgomery County right next to us is red. But that's something that I keep a close eye on every week. It comes out on Thursday in the afternoon, around when DeWine speaks. So I continually check that and make sure to see if we're, even if we're staying orange, are things trending up, are they trending down, what's going on with that. So keep a close eye on that. And also to note with that, I keep a close eye on what's impacting other counties going to red or staying at orange or going to yellow. And just a couple examples of why some counties either have stayed at red or at red around here are Montgomery County and Butler County. So Montgomery County, UD went back to school. So, they had a sharp increase in COVID cases at UD. And from my understanding, that is what made them jump back to red, was the UD situation. Butler County, which is where University of Miami's at. So again, their cases really jumped when, even though they're on remote, there are some students back on campus there that are not on campus but live right outside of campus. So those cases really jumped there because of that, and so they are red. In the past, I remember in the summer, Clark County went to red for a week or two because of a senior citizen center or a nursing home. There was a case or cases that kind of spread throughout there. So again, to me, it's using that information to determine, is this a thing that's going on in the whole county, or is this an isolated piece to a specific piece of the county or a unique situation there, and how that's impacting. Some other things that to take in consideration are the number of cases and quarantines that we have at our schools. So right now we've had 4 positive cases, and we've had about 7 or 8 quarantines that are based off of those cases. So those numbers have been really low at this point. We went through the first 2 weeks without any cases positive in school. Those number of cases and quarantines we really have to keep an eye on, because as Mr. Pereira spoke, in a situation where folks are only a few feet apart, as the students, based on guidance from CDC and based on guidance from Greene County Public Health, those people that are within 6 feet of 15 minutes or more and someone's positive, you have to quarantine for 14 days. So those are things that really go into impact that. Also to go into that, the quick cases and quarantines is if that impacts our staff members. And are we able to have school if we have a large number of staff members that are either positive or that need to be quarantined? That's really based on the number of subs that we have are really low right now. That pool is really shallow, even though we're trying to get ahead of the curve and have some subs come in every day. We've had great attendance by our staff members and students. We have great attendance, and we know that as the year goes on, and winter comes and so forth, that's going to be a little bit more challenging. So that's something else we need to keep an extremely close eye on. The other thing is, as I'm going out to the buildings, observing, going to classrooms, talking with students, talking with staff, and see how things are going with that. That's another piece of this whole puzzle of making decisions. So, because determining, I guess, my stance on that, and then we did submit a remote learning plan to ODE. That was board approved last board meeting that was approved. So essentially that gives us the flexibility. Once that plan is, we submitted that plan to ODE. That gives us the flexibility to move between 100% hybrid or 100% remote pretty fluidly and quickly, extremely quickly to be able to do that. And those count as 100% attendance days. So in the past, those days were limited. You did what's called blizzard bags in the past. So we're able to move fluidly between those. So I guess where I'm at with this of continuation is I really want to stay away from if this, and this happens, we're 100% doing this. Just because, you know, if we would say, if we go red, we're going to do 100% remote, or we're going to do hybrid. Again, that could be an isolated situation in a nursing home. It could be an isolated situation at a university. That could be something that really is not impacting, or maybe it's on the other side of the county, and it really isn't impacting us. Vice versa, maybe the county is orange, but you know, the cases around Kettering and Centerville are much, much higher. Obviously, we're right next to them. That could possibly impact us. Again, like I said, the lack of subs and the number of cases and quarantines among staff members and or students, that could really impact us. So I guess where I'm at with all that, is, again, like I said, is using all that information and pulling it all together and then making the best decision as possible and not getting backed into a corner of this, and this means we have to do this. I don't know if that's helpful or questions about that.
Everybody hear me? There's a lag time when you hit the switch until it comes on. So Dr. Cozy, I think that's really important. Something I had not given thought to. You know, just because you see a county spike to level 3. And Josh, can you go ahead and bring up that display? If you go to the Greene County website, it'll tell you what our alert level is, but it won't tell you what it means. So I had to go do a lot of sleuthing around the Ohio COVID website to find these definitions. There is a handout there. In fact, we have it here, not handout, but there's multi-pages there that describe what the various alert levels are, what they mean, how they're computed. You can track ours all the way back to the 30th of July, which is, again, what I was using as my, I guess, criteria for whether we should go back to school or not. But the important thing of it is you can be quite informed about what's going on throughout the entire state, even locally, by going and looking at that. So you can see we've been at level 2 since July. I don't know if we've ever been above that. I don't think so. Even back in, actually things started spiking in, when you back to look at the numbers, it'll chart it out for you. Things started spiking in early July. We formulated our plan in late July, and it's been about the same if you just look at the chart since then. So anyway, but I think because that's really insightful to focus in on what's the cause of that. I mean, a nursing home can get you a huge spike. You know, what was it, one in New Jersey where, I don't know, 68 out of 130 or so died, you know, from COVID. So it's especially, destructive to elderly people, and so you could get a spike with severe consequences in various segments. So I think that's prudent to look at the nature of an alert level change, but also there's other markers you just brought up, such as what's going on within our schools specifically. And I as I pondered it, I'm in full agreement with you that it should be not a 1 + 1 + 1, okay, equals 3, therefore we're done kind of thing. I think it should be a look at the big picture. The question I have, a couple questions here. One for you is, are you going to make that call and say, okay, we're going to hybrid? Would we trigger a board meeting, an emergency board meeting, to make a decision of that magnitude as we migrate back and forth, between different levels of attendance? What are the thoughts, and what are the board member thoughts on that? So I think it's important to discuss that.
We did approve the remote learning plan, and that does give the superintendent the authority to be able to make those decisions. So we would count on his recommendation. Of course, we'd have to would likely have a discussion about it, of course, at the next meeting, but it wouldn't require an emergency meeting for us to be able to switch.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. I can't remember. It's been
Sure.
some time.
So similar to like calamity days,
Okay.
the superintendent has authority to be able to make those choices for the district.
And as I alluded to earlier, and I think this will cause some dissatisfaction in various areas, but I'm really quite serious though when I say that I cannot justify, contact sports if we can't go to school 100%. And so I think that we're given the prerogative. It's in Governor DeWine's release on sports. It says, I won't necessarily pull it up and read it here, but it says public officials, us, have the ability to add additional restrictions beyond what the broad guidance is from the state. So I'm immensely uncomfortable, honestly, with students, especially in football, where you got 8 people piling on one, unmasked, from different schools. I really struggle with that, even as we go back to school now 100%. I guess it was it Fairborn this week that had a positive, and that resulted in several players being quarantined once they went back and looked at the tapes. And also, I think I forget the school they were playing with. But anyway, I don't know what other board members' thoughts are on that, but I have a hard time justifying contact sports if we can't go to school 100%.
And I would say, I don't necessarily think this is going to sneak up on us. The only thing that would maybe sneak up on us is we have a rash of staff members that are positive or have to be quarantined. That's, the other things, the State of Ohio Health Advisory System, I don't really see that sneaking up on us. Even if we're red for a week, I wouldn't want to say, okay, we're red for a week, we have to do this, because then maybe the next week you're orange. So, to make a rash decision like that, again, I think you'd have to really put all those things together. Again, it's flexibility, it's trying to gather all the information and try to get make the best decision as possible. And, like on a snow day, you're asking about, kind of calamity day, snow day, you do the best you can, at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes the conditions get worse at 9, and sometimes they get, better at 9, but you had to make the call at 4:30. So, you try to gather as much information as possible. And if you can make that decision the night before, that's even better, because that's, you have all the information possible, but sometimes that's not possible.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you very much.
What's the November 3rd general operating levy?
Yes, please.
Okay. So last board meeting, we also had a discussion about, the upcoming levy, the 5.7 mil general operating levy that we have on the ballot. And what are some things that, as we look at bringing possibility of things, if it passes, the possibility of examining, looking at, thinking about things of bringing back as a possibility. Obviously, we did a survey on that also, trying to gather information of what, if anything, to bring back. So, Kevin, you want me to go first with my information, and then you can go with the facts or the figures, the numbers? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So again, and I reiterated some of this, or I talked about this at the last board meeting. Again, the things that we're on, so we're talking about phase 4 reductions. And the things that we kind of put out there as possibilities to bring back were the 85 supplementals, which are some sports teams, some clubs, some advisors, some activities, those kind of things. Librarians, K-5 STEM, K-5 art, and high school busing. So as we're trying to look and examine what, if anything, to bring back and when to bring it back, as you try to go through all those scenarios of what kind of impact that those things would have on financially, what kind of impact would they have on the school as a whole, structurally, schedule-wise, also how they would impact students and their schedule, and also how they would impact staffing and those kind of things. So trying to put those all together. So, as I try to look at the challenges of that, just trying to gather some information and think out loud here, you know, the supplementals, really, I can't think of besides the financial piece of, again, this is if the levy passes, okay? So if the levy passes, these are the things that we're examining, bringing back. So those 85 supplementals, bringing those back, and looking at, again, I'm just talking out loud of all the possibilities and what the issues and concerns are. So really, there's really no concerns except the financial piece with the supplementals of bringing those back. Obviously, they've already missed, you know, at that point, it'd probably be half the year already done. If you've paid attention to with elections, she facetiously said if you've been paying attention to election cycle, but, you know, election here coming up, that obviously there's going to be big absentee ballots, obviously, stating the obvious there. But what that does is we may not know the result on election night. Kind of like we didn't know the election result on the new election night in the spring there, April 28th. So we might not know until the end of November or around Thanksgiving because they have to wait until what's called canvassing is done to count all those absentee ballots. So just because the election's on November 3rd, let's just really, you know, if it's one way or another, a huge amount, then you might know. But, you know, we won't officially know until the end of November there by Thanksgiving around in there. So those supplementals, then also, you know, the busing for the high school, you know, some of the challenges with that is, first of all, the biggest challenge with that is finding bus drivers. So right now we have 0 subs. The people that are subbing are really our BEV, and then we have our mechanics that can sub on, you know, driving a bus. So we have 0 sub bus drivers. So as you talk about bringing back, a possibility of bringing back busing at the high school, that's 4 additional staff members, 4 additional bus drivers. When you have 0 subs, you find people you know, off the street, it takes anywhere from 6 weeks to 3 months to train them. Because obviously we want them to be safe out there driving a big yellow bus. So it would take anywhere from 6 weeks to 3 months in order to train them. That's after finding 4 bus drivers. And, you know, looking at our salary scale, we're one of the lowest, if not the lowest around here for salaries for bus drivers. So it's going to be a huge challenge to even find 4 bus drivers. And once we would, it would take 6 weeks to 6 weeks to 3 months to train them. Also, we brought that back. We would have to move the high school bell schedule to 8 to 3 because right now they're 8:20 to 3:20. The other challenge is that since we eliminated busing at the high school, we allowed more drivers to drive. And so you really can't pull that back in the middle of the year. So if you've been out here the past couple of days, traffic is really heavy in the afternoon. The morning is heavy also, but really in the afternoon it's really heavy out here. And then you add in all the high school students leaving at the same time with all the buses and the BCI parents. It might be gridlock out there. It would be extremely challenging with the busing out there and all the drivers. K-5 art and STEM, kind of the same situation for K-5 art and STEM. So if we would, you know, again, bring those back at some point, you're thinking about bringing them back in the middle of the year. There's people internally that apply for those, and you have to fill those spots. And the applicant pool is fairly shallow in the middle of the year compared to the summer because you can't get out of the contract in the middle of the year if you're at another school district. So it'd be a challenge also. The schedules at Stephen Bell BCI would be impacted with that also because they would be adding specials in there that don't currently exist. The other piece is, again, 6th grade art. This can be also in that mix, you know, vetting that back and, again, switching around schedules and so forth would be the extremely challenging piece to that. Librarians, bringing the librarians or the media specialists back wouldn't be as disruptive to the schedules because even though we're splitting between 4 buildings, they're essentially 2.5 days at each building, so they're at the elementary level are seeing all the students, even though it's a very condensed, much smaller time, they still are seeing those. Kevin, you want to talk about the financial impact on some of those things?
Sure. A lot of this I talked about at the last meeting and really over the last year or so, but so I just want to hit some of the high things here, high points. To summarize, we are required as school district treasurers to complete 5-year forecast twice a year, so every 6 months. When I do that 5-year forecast, the last year of it is school year 24-25. So at the end of that fiscal year, June 30th, 2025, if we do not pass a levy, and this figure I'm going to give you, or balance, will be with no levy passing, and with keeping the $4.8 million of cuts we've made, not bringing anything back for 5 years and not passing a levy, we would be $8.1 million in the red. Talk about why that is with our district, because our district is considered to be a wealthy income district and housing district, valuation of property. Therefore, the state gives us very little state money. It's based on those two items. So we get, this year's probably going to be more like 25% state funding. I've been saying 27 for the last couple of years. We're down to about 25% of our funding from the state, and the average for other school districts are 40 or above, 40, 50. Worked in one before that, about 65% of their entire budget came from state funding. So we don't have an income tax. We rely mostly on real estate tax income from these levies. So 8.1 million in the red at the end without a levy, at the end of the forecast. And if we pass this levy in November, and even if we reinstate the cuts that we talked about reinstating immediately, and those are reinstated for the entire, or at least 4 of the 5 years on the forecast, our balance at the end of that forecast will still be $4.7 million. And I've had several people contact me in the past couple months asking, are we going to vote on this and pass it, and then you come right back with another one quickly? And, with this forecast, it's a good solid forecast with the cuts we've made, trimming the budget, and passing a levy that we should be years before we have to come back again in another vote. Although I'm not promising that, because so many things can happen in the state with state funding and all the other things that can happen overnight to change the situation. But it's a very good forecast if the levy passes. I think that's all I've got.
I got something.
Just a quick comment here. The question frequently comes up as to why levies have to be passed recurring. And it's very important people understand this, that by the nature of the way funding is set up in the state of Ohio, if you do not pass a levy on a periodic basis, your schools will go into fiscal demise. And if you question that, I would love to talk to you and have you explain to me how House Bill 920, how it freezes outside millage to the amount at passage, how that does not influence our ability to fund our schools. You have, by definition, inflation. So over time, costs are going to go up. And if your levy amount, let's just make up a number here. What is this one, 3.3? So if it's frozen at $3.3 million, let's take it to some extreme number here, 50 years. 50 years from now, $3.3 million doesn't buy this thing. So as our expenses go up, you have to pass a levy on a recurring basis. And anybody that doesn't think that's so, please come explain it to me, because I'd love to see how we can make money grow when it's frozen. It would be a really interesting discussion. So on a periodic basis, the school district has to come back for a levy. I think it's on the order of around 11% of our money. Funding comes from inside millage, which is indeed affected and adjusted for increases in property values and things like that. But roughly 85 to 90% of our funding is not increasing as a function of property values. So as inflation goes up, your buying power goes down. And so you cannot live off the same money that you did 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. So it's critically important people understand that. If you don't, please talk to somebody that can explain it to you. And hence that's the reason why this levy is desperately needed. Because if not, the schools will continue to descend into a fiscal, chaos, or not chaos, but debts. So anyhow, what it's worth.
I just have a question, and I don't know really how this would work. But at what point did we discuss ending the pay freeze for the teachers and staff?
When we had negotiations, salary negotiations,
But will passing the levy help with this?
yes. We definitely changed the financial outlook, and yes. But I mean, it's what's negotiated and approved by the board and by the SEA, and we're talking about teachers, that we use. And finances are reviewed at that time, whether it's good or bad, and always brought up. It's Mark and some of the others have been at the table that,
How long has the pay freeze been?
1 year.
Just 1 year? Just wanted that.
But there was a pay freeze earlier, like 2008, 9, 10, somewhere in that range also. So
No, it's several years.
that's 3 years. So around in that range.
I mean, that's a big sacrifice.
Yep, definitely. The other piece that adds to this is we talk about the state funding piece. Again, it just blows me away, and it shouldn't, that, we got about $650,000 cut for fiscal year 20 that ended in June, in May. They said, hey, you're gonna get cut $650,000 this fiscal year that ends in like a month and a half, and your fixed costs are already there. Your fixed costs are there. So, that's what's really. And then they really didn't even mention anything about that it's staying at that level for the next year, for this year. They just kind of slid it there, just kept on giving us the payments. No one said, hey, you're at the same level you were last year that we cut you. So again, as I said in the past, if we are waiting for the state to solve the problems here for funding in our district, it's just not going to happen. And the latest case here is case in point. We have, I don't want to misquote, $2.7 billion in the rainy day fund. And, the state rainy day fund. The state rainy day fund, and they haven't used any of it. I think it's raining in Ohio, but they won't use any of it. So, they're cutting, and it's up to the local school districts to determine what kind of school district they're going to have. But bringing these things back, so again, I've gone, and we're going to go later in the, E in the board agenda is going to be kind of the recommendation here, but just doing a kind of informal recommendation here. I really have gone back and forth in my thoughts about this whole thing, and I really boil it down to, and actually it's in part of the my upcoming bridge article, that you're only a student in first grade 1 year, you're only a student in fifth grade for 1 year, you're only a student in seventh grade 1 year, you're only a senior once in your life. And so if there's a way that we can bring back some things as soon as possible, even though I've named off a bunch of things that are going to be extremely challenging for us to do and disruptive, I think we need to do our best to bring these back as soon as possible if the levy passes, with the caveat of the busing situation. I just don't know how we can do that. There's, with the teaching positions, there's teachers out there that, we can interview and hire and so forth. The bus drivers, I just don't know how we would do that. So, a caveat to all of that would be the bus drivers, but, as soon as possible to try to bring back, again, trying to be the least disruptive as possible to our schedules, but bringing those items back in mid-year would be my recommendations of the supplementals, Again, the busing thing, I guess I don't want to go on record trying to bring that back because I don't think we can do that just because of the 4 bus drivers. Maybe we could. But the K to 5, art and STEM, and then the librarians, bringing all those back. And then the following school year, bringing back the 6th grade art. Again, just trying to fit all those into schedules, logistics. And then the other piece is if the levy doesn't pass, I think at this point, we just need to, and this is my thoughts, recommendation, is we just need to kind of stay where we're at. And, this is the new normal, with the caveat again that we're going to continue to look for ways to make reductions and cut costs in ways that we can. Just because if the community has voted 3 times no, to me, they've elected all of you, and you have hired Kevin and I to run the district. We need to make those decisions then. If you've spoken 3 times that it's a no, then we need to make those decisions of what the next things are. But again, trying to make those possibly through attrition or cost-cutting pieces here and there, but of no widespread cuts at this point. At this point, again, it depends on future finances. Who knows? The state could come back again and cut us. There could be another levy at some other point. So those are just things to be determined in the future here. So that's kind of where I'm at, and that would be a recommendation that I'm going to make later in the piece here, but in the agenda. But just want to get my thoughts and opinions out there.
All right, thank you very much. We're going on now to open communications. And so first we have Bert Hagler.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the board, for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Bert Hagler, and I'm president of the Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Parents Association. And I'm here tonight to ask that you please reinstate the Bellbrook High School Boys and Girls JV lacrosse program. We understand the cuts had to be made due to the levy not passing this past spring. There were cuts across the board. We know that coaches had to be cut, but we feel that the Bellbrook lacrosse program was impacted more disproportionately than other sporting programs. If we lose our JV lacrosse program, we have no feeder program for the varsity. Other sporting teams were lost. For instance, the Bellbrook High School freshman football team, which they haven't had a team for 4 years, that was cut. The Bellbrook High School freshman baseball team was cut. Well, they haven't had a team since before 2009. We're losing our only feeder program that we have. And lacrosse is a unique program. We do have coaches out there available to coach. And our JV and our varsity do practice together. They travel together. So that in reality, just because we lose a coach, it should not mean we should lose the whole program. But most importantly, as we've said, we want to see these students and athletes have an opportunity to participate. And if we cut the program, we're looking at maybe close to 20 boys who would not be able to participate, and maybe even close to more like 35 girls that would not be able to participate. This past year, we had 55 girls that came out for the lacrosse program. The coach already said he can't have more than 23 to 25 on the varsity. So that's a significant number of students who would not be able to participate. Which brings to mind, I gave you a financial analysis just for the boys program. If you want to look at it from a business standpoint, lacrosse is profitable by itself. If you have $300 per player on student participation fees, if you're cutting 20 boys and maybe 35 girls, the athletic department is going to be losing a lot of money. If we reinstate the program and allow these students to participate, if you look down the list of the costs, most of the costs are fixed costs, whether you have both varsity and JV or just varsity. There would be an increase in cost for transportation, although that the boys and girls varsity and JV do travel together. the increase in cost would be because they have to have a van to take the equipment. There's an increase in referees' fees, but overall, if you look at the total amount of income based only on the school play-to-pay fee, not even gate fees, and then look at the total expenses incurred just by having the JV lacrosse program, you would net a total of $3,620 just on the boys team. The girls team would be significantly higher because there are more players that would be available to play on JV. So again, I know this doesn't have all the information in front of you that you might possibly need. If you would have any questions for me, if you'd like more information, including the girls' financials, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to you. So thank you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now I can see it. Thank you very much. Matt McConnell.
Hello, thank you board for having me. My name is Matt McConnell and I am the vice president of the Lacrosse Parents Club. One thing just to add on to what Bert said, our parents club and the lacrosse program here in Bellbrook has a tremendous amount of support. We fundraise nearly $10,000 a year for the past several years. And that will show in our attendance at the games as well. And at $6 or so a ticket to bring in, let's just say we brought in 4 tickets per player. The gate at those games alone will be a significant amount of money that could be used to support other programs that have been cut, or programs that are being considered to be cut. So one thing we definitely are asking your consideration for the JV program for the boys and the girls lacrosse, and just keep in mind that it definitely is a profitable program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not that familiar with lacrosse, although I did have a nephew who played. When is your season?
Spring.
That's spring.
Spring season, yes.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Okay. Kaylee Riggs. Did I pronounce your name correct?
Yes, thank you.
Very good.
Hi, my name is Kaylee Riggs, and my name is Kaylee Riggs, and I'm a student at Bellbrook High School. I'm here to represent the concerns that many members of the student body, at least in the high school, and I haven't talked. I don't have any siblings in any of the younger children's schools, so I'm not entirely aware if this is a shared opinion across the board, or if it's just a high school thing. But many students, it has brought to my attention that we're very concerned with the health of us and our family members that we have at home, specifically with COVID-19 and in return to the 100% capacity of the schools. We feel like although although the board has decided to return to 100% and that this was the plan all along, we don't feel like this is being executed in a very safe or efficient manner, at least not evenly across the board. There are some classes where it is very safe and taken care of very well, and then there are some classes where it is not safe and it is not being taken care of very well, whether this is because of the lack of social distancing or the lack of individual students choosing to not adhere to the rules that have been put in place. There are several specific cases that I've seen in person that just have honestly broken the rules, and it's not very safe, I feel like, for all of us. Since there is not really any data predicting how we could contain such an outrage of cases as we can, there are several cases in several rooms where people are so close together that there could be a very large outbreak very quickly. Again, there are other rooms where it would not happen as quickly, but since this is not a very, this isn't a common occurrence, this is the first time this has happened in pretty much a century, we don't really know how to handle it, and I think that the way that we're handling it right now could be handled a bit better. Additionally, teachers aren't, paying much attention to kids who are quarantined. There are several cases, again, that I've seen where children who are quarantined don't have as much access to their teachers or to their work as perhaps they did in the spring, when it was more expected. And so I do believe that if we do have to return to a 50-50 or fully online state, that we should do so like more gradually, and that sending us all the way back to 100% online isn't at all what we intended, because as it was established, about, if you said 20% of the parents decided to go onto the all online academy portion, and those of us who stayed in school did so for the social aspect and the better learning. And I do believe that it is important for us to get that in school engagement with our teachers, with our friends and our peers, but I think that can be done in a much safer way than it is right now. I think that as students, most people overlook us because even right now as I'm speaking, this isn't very much my forte. And as a student, we're expected to sit down and learn and do as we're told, and it is the parents' job, I feel like, in our society to represent us, when in reality, our parents aren't representing us at all. They're representing their own interests as the parents, which obviously is a noble regard in and of itself, but nobody really asked us as the students what we thought or how we felt. So I just thought that it was important that I come up here as a student to represent our opinion, and our opinion, I believe by and large, is that this isn't being handled in the way that it should be. And I just figured that you all should be aware of that, and I do hope that you'll consider perhaps ramping school back to a 50-50 sort of level. And, you know, as you said, Dr. Ko said, not to wait for these three things to happen before we revert back to 50-50, to perhaps take it as it comes and be a bit more flexible. Even though that has a plan that has been in place since July, I think that maybe since the 50-50 worked very well, we should reinstate that instead of just sticking with the way things are until all hell breaks loose or anything else like that. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I guess this is my night to own the floor here, but Kaylee, correct? I am so impressed. I laud you. I applaud you. It's awesome beyond description that you as a student would come out here, speak, you know, what's that word? Contemporaneous. What's that word? Contemporaneously, or whatever it is. Like to go back to school. Speak, freely like you did, without prepared notes or anything else. So very much impressed with what you did. I commend you for it. I think you're going to go far in life, maybe as a public speaker, in spite of what you just assessed yourself as being. I think you did a phenomenal job, and you really conveyed your concerns. We hear you, and we'll continue to assess it. Again, in my own little experience the other day, the students were remarkably compliant with the guidance, but I certainly understand and respect what you're saying. I went out to the base today where I work, and I had two adults in a room that was about 5 by 8 and not wearing masks, and they somehow thought that was okay. And it's very much an expectation at the base that people do that. And so I work at home, and for the most part, but today I had to go out there, and I was really disappointed. So I raised it up the chain of command there, and so when you see things like that, you don't have to necessarily raise your hand in class and say, hey, Mr. Carrera, can you correct such and such here in the back? But you can say after class, say, hey, can you talk to whatever teacher, talk to the, your other teachers, and whoever, and bring it up, because it is critically important. We know that surprisingly these masks work, if we wear them in both directions. And so again, I commend you for speaking, being willing to come out here, expressing so well your concerns, and we hear you, we'll listen, we'll try to make the best decision we can based on the facts that we have. And so thank you very much for coming out tonight.
Again, thanks. Dr. St. Peter, goodness gracious, that was awesome. Sorry, he's right out there too. Dr. Kozak.
I also want to say thank you to Kaylee for coming up here. I talked with her and her fellow students, a few of them back there with her last Friday. They raised some extremely good questions, concerns, thoughts. They had done their homework when they were talking to me, so we were very impressive. We were in the outside courtyard, outside classroom, all socially distanced, and with masks and everything, and they just did a fantastic job. I've already followed up with Mr. Han about the concerns and thoughts that you guys had last Friday, and I'll do it again. Also about lacrosse, I'll follow up with you guys at a later time on the stuff from tonight. Okay. Superintendent's report, new business. So certified licensed staff employment, resignation, leave of absence, supplemental duty. Recommend acceptance of resignation from reading specialist Meredith Collins, effective end of day, August 14, 2020.
Any questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Hey, Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. France?
Yes. Motion passes.
Recommend approval of one-year employment contract for 2021 school year for Jennifer Lakin as Bell Creek Reading Specialist, BA 150, Step 0, effective August 27th, 2020.
We have a motion. Mrs. Sloughman.
Second.
Mrs. France. Any other comments, questions? Please call the roll.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman? Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. France?
Yes.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Recommend acceptance of supplemental duty resignation from Zachary Greenwald, Assistant Band Director, August 19, 2020. And he was previously approved at 50% based on the amount of time he's already completed before his resignation.
We have a motion. Mrs. France. Mrs. Sloughman. Any questions? Call the roll.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. France?
Yes.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Be it resolved, the Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Board of Education has offered these supplemental duty positions via posting to licensed employees of the district. The board either had no qualified licensed applicants or no employees applied before these positions were offered to non-licensed persons. The following non-licensed persons have met qualifications for the board posting as supplemental duty positions as noted below. Recommend approval of the following supplemental duty contract for the 2021 school year. Sheldon Apo and Nathaniel Charlesworth.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Mrs. Long.
Second.
Mrs. France. Any discussion, questions? Call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. France?
Yes.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Motion passes.
Recommend approval of the following substitute teachers for 2021 school year. Barbara Adams, Corinne Borsch, Courtney Huffman, Elizabeth Smith.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Mrs. Long.
Second.
Mrs. France. Any questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. France?
Yes.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes. Motion passes.
Recommend acceptance of resignation from Transportation Assistant Allison Schenk, effective July 20th, 2020. She'll be a sub for this year.
Have a motion.
So moved.
Mrs. Long.
Second.
Mrs. Sloughman.
And at this point, we are not replacing that position.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, please call the roll.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman? Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. France?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Recommend acceptance of resignation from custodian William Jenks, effective end of day, August 21st, 2020.
Motion. Mrs. Sloughman.
Second.
Mrs. France. Any questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. France?
Yes.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Recommend acceptance of resignation from custodian Jeffrey Osborne, effective end of day, August 28th, 2020.
Motion.
So moved.
Mrs. Long and then Mrs. Sloughman. Questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. France?
Yes.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Recommend approval of one-year employment contract for 2021 year for Gary Baker as custodian, classification number 3, step 2, 7 hours a day, step 2, 209 days, step 2 is in there twice. effective 9/1/2020. Want to make sure he's on step 2.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Mrs. Brenner.
Second.
Mrs. Long. Any questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And Mr. Baker essentially took the position of William Jenks at BCI. There wasn't switching around there, but he's at BCI. Number 5 is on the hand carry, to fill in the blanks there. Recommend approval of the following one-year employment contract with effective at the 2021 school year. Scott Hudson, custodian, classification number 3, 209 days, 7.5 hours a day. Step 0, effective 9/14/2020.
Motion.
So moved.
Mrs. Long. Mrs. Sloughman. Questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter.
Yes. Motion passes.
Back to the regular agenda here. Recommend approval for increase in daily hours for special needs assistant Laura Lake from 6.25 to 6.75. Retroactive start of 2021 school year.
Mrs. Sloughman.
Second.
Mrs. France. Any questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. France.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Number 7 here is part on the regular agenda, part on the hand carries. So recommend approval of the following substitute support staff for 2021 school year: Madison Boer, and then Mark Chesney and William Tim Elan.
Motion. Mrs. Sloughman.
Second.
Mrs. France. Any questions or comments? All right, please call the roll.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long.
Yes.
Motion passes.
On the hand carry, number 8, recommend approval to amend motion number 20-125 from June 11, 2020 to reflect a change of resignation date for bus driver Ray Jean from October 12 to October 14, 2020.
So moved.
Mrs. Long.
Second.
Mrs. France. Any questions or comments? All right, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Revision to school fees 2021, recommend approval to amend the 2021 student fee schedule. That's a $1 increase for that flight class.
Motion.
So moved.
Mrs. Long.
Second.
Mrs. France. Questions about light? All right, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Donations, D, recommend acceptance of the following donations with gratitude: the Stephen Bell Playground Renovation Fund, Bellbrook Wheat Eagles, Mr. and Mrs. Carlos Rivera, Manson Family, and Lowe's Home Improvement. And then also anonymous of $1,016 to the general fund.
So moved.
Mrs. France. Mrs. Sloughman. I think it's interesting to note that our anonymous donation was because an individual who was disappointed that we didn't pass the levy the first time donated the difference in what he would have paid this year for his taxes. So that's why it's the number that it is, $1,016. That would have been the increase. So, generous donation. Any other questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman, Mr. Carpenter.
Yes, Ms. Grant.
Okay, and E, program reinstatements is on the hand carry. So again, from the discussion earlier, what I am recommending is second semester or as soon as practical after that, if the levy does pass, that we bring back K-5 STEM, K-5 art. The rest of the rest of the supplementals that their season hasn't already passed, obviously you can't bring back the fall supplementals, but anything that still is pending out there for the rest of the year, to bring those supplementals back. The librarians, and then sixth grade art next school year, the 21-22 school year. And then high school busing, I don't know how we can phrase this. You know, as soon as, I don't know if it's gotta be next year, or I just don't think we're gonna be able to find 4 bus drivers. And by the time, if we did that, it would be March, possibly at the earliest, that we could find them, get them trained, and then you're doing it just for a quarter. We have to switch around all the high school times. So that's, even though to me the busing thing sounds easy to do, but the finding the bus drivers is just real troublesome in the traffic thing. But the bus driver thing is the most troublesome thing. You just can't make bus drivers appear out of thin air.
Let's look at that just for the next school year. People will have figured out their transportation for the current year by that time. Now, other thoughts, comments?
I think as soon as possible is what we should be doing.
Feasible, yeah.
We can phrase it something like as soon as feasible or soon as practical, you know, and leave those terms to be explained as we got to get people to be hired, and then we have to train them. And so, again, if that's the middle, you know, if that's early May, there's probably no reason to bring it back for 2.5 weeks. If it's middle of January, you know, that could be different.
We can only do the best that we can do, but we need to constantly be thinking what's in it for the voter. So yeah, as soon as possible.
Let's say as soon as feasible and practical. Okay. Yep.
So beginning of second semester or after that, as soon as it's feasible or practical.
Yeah.
Yes. Because again, like I said, I don't think we're going to get results until the end of November officially. So, okay. And then so that's my recommendations. And then if the levy does not pass, this is the new normal. And, you know, we continue to look for ways for cost savings. And if there's a way through attrition or something that we can make a reduction, you know, we continue to look and do that. To me, again, if it's been 3 levy failures in a row, you know, I think, in my opinion, I think that gives us not that we haven't already had this opportunity or this power is not the right word, but so forth, that they've spoken that's the school district that they want. They want one that's moving towards state minimums. That's what we're going to be moving towards with things. I don't know, thoughts or comments about that?
I hardly think that we're going to move towards state minimums, but certainly the voters have given that impression. That would be, unless we feel very different from them.
Yeah, we can't do it all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was saying I don't think that the district as a whole really wants to be going towards state minimums. There are perhaps segments that don't care whether we do or not, but certainly as a whole, I think that the community does not want to go there. All right, so
I would agree with that. You know, I'm except the presentation tonight by Mr. Hagler or Dr. Hagler and Mr. McConnell, and a few emails here or there. I really haven't got a lot of feedback of people upset about the reductions to cost, and I know the reductions and cuts, and I know obviously the whole COVID situation has kind of taken over everything. But I thought I would get some more response from people that, hey, my kid misses STEM, my kid misses art. The high school busing is probably the biggest thing, just because that's that's a people, finding a way for their kid to get to school. I've probably had a few emails. Not that I'm asking for a bunch of emails from folks. However, I'm a little disappointed. I'll just be honest with you. I'm a little disappointed that people are a little bit more upset about losing these things, because these are really good things. K-5 STEM. Not many other school districts that have that. Art in the elementary, librarians. I'm a little upset that people aren't a little bit more upset and want to do something about it. It's just disappointing.
Any other questions? All right, do we have a motion to approve the recommendation? Mrs. Long? Mrs. France? Any other comments or discussion?
Will we be able to get together tomorrow and get the wording down on that one, since it's not worded out?
All right, Mr. Arming, call the roll.
Okay. Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Smallwood?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. France?
Yes.
Motion passes. All right, going on, I think that was anything else for you to do, sir? Okay. The last item of information and discussion, I'd like to recommend that we engage the OSBA in a half-day session for training for board members. So that probably on a Saturday, but if you would please let me know what time works, what day could work for you over the next couple months. I greatly appreciate that. We'll try to find one where we can all be there, and then we'll engage OSBA. It's the training that OSBA provides is really very good, and it's something that we can, I think, all benefit from. So let me know what half day might work for you. If I get morning or afternoon on a Saturday would work, that'd be great. Sunday afternoon may be a possibility as well. I don't know if OSBA does anything on Sunday afternoon, but we'll see what we can find out. But if you could kind of send me the dates which could work for you over the next couple months, I appreciate that. All right, any other comments or so far from the board? Okay, go ahead.
Just a few other things here. So opportunities for community members to get more information or to ask questions. Next Tuesday, the 15th, from 9 to 10 a.m. in the morning, I am holding a tailgate talk. This is a new, also, the old version was coffee with the superintendent, but this is going to be outside, socially distanced, and wearing masks. So the social distance era that we're living in, tailgate talk, we're going to be out in front of the BCI gym, and I'm going to talk for about an hour. At this point, Mr. Price is going to be joining me at that, if nothing else comes up to pull him away. Again, this is just an informal time for people to come and ask questions, whether it's about the levy or anything else, just like the coffee with the superintendents. And then also we have on September 21st from 6 to 8 p.m., we have a virtual levy meeting. In the past, we've had community levy meetings right in this room. So again, in the COVID-19 era, we're having a virtual one. Folks can send their questions to info@bss.k12.oh.us. And before the meeting would be preferred. We're also going to have some questions during the meeting. So Kevin Graham is going to be joining. David Graham, I'll look over here. David Graham is going to be joining us, Greene County Auditor, at the September 21st session. David Carpenter, and Kevin Liming are going to also be there along with myself. And so the first one's on September 21st, the second one's on October 21st.
And the tailgate talk, the first one is when again?
Next Tuesday, September 15th, from 9 to 10 a.m. And then I have 4 or 5 more scheduled. And so they're a combination of 9 to 10 in the morning or 6 to 7 in the evening.
All right, any other board comments?
When are we going to get this nailed down?
We don't actually have to make any changes on that or decision on that because when we approve the remote learning process where we are approved for 100% in person, hybrid, or 100% online. And we would, that would be Dr. Kozad's call for when the circumstances warranted us moving from the current scenario to one of the other scenarios.
I would like it to be more concrete so everybody knows what to expect.
Well, yes, I can appreciate that. And the dilemma is that things can change, but also we would have some kind of anticipated warning that things were going awry and needed to be either adjusted.
I think that's a lot of the problem we had in the last meeting. We need to put some specifics on this. Soon.
Okay, I hear you. All right, any other questions or comments? Mary?
I'd just like to say that the Career Center has moved into the new building. And if you get a chance, it's at the intersection of the 35 bypass and 68. And the building is huge. It has fantastic facilities. We have a robotics lab that's 2 stories tall, and it's right when you first walk in. We've built a hangar out of the Greene County Airport, and we have an aviation class now that will be receiving FAA accreditation when they're done. And they're just doing wonderful things out there. So if we get a chance, I might say we might try to go out there one night or something for a tour sometime during the day so we can see the kids. They're doing small tours of no more than 6 people. So just if you hear anything about it, if you get a chance to drive out there, take a look. It's fantastic.
Sounds great. Thank you very much, Mary.
I would just concur with that. I was out there for a tour maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. Again, drones are out there. Just a fantastic opportunity for our students in Greene County. It's an awesome, awesome facility.
All right, finally, a recommendation to go into executive session for the purpose of considering employment and compensation of a licensed public employee per revised code 121.22G1 and discussion with board attorney issues that are the subject of pending or imminent court action, revised code 121.22G3. We have a motion. Mary, so moved.
Second.
And Karen, Mrs. Long. Please call the roll.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes,
Mrs. Brands,
Yes.
Mrs. Law.
Yes.
motion passes. We're going into executive session at 8:49. p.m. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Mrs. Hoffman,
Second.
Mrs. Long? Any discussion?
No.
Mr. Lyman, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. Franks said yes. Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes.
Motion passes. We are adjourned.